Hello and welcome back to the Villa podcast. I'm here as always, my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Aston Villa 3, Burnley 2. But yeah, we made that hard for ourselves, didn't we?
Yeah, as we often like to do. But most important thing after what's been a pretty rocky week for Villa was to get 3 points on the board today. And we've done that, and all is well. It wasn't easy, but yeah, I mean, up until Liverpool play tomorrow, we're currently joint top of the league. And no matter what the circumstances, you can never be too mad at that.
No, definitely not. And we could have been top had we have won 9-0, which, I mean, we'd have been lucky to have scored 9 given how this game went, wouldn't we, mate? But, I mean, I think the first place for me to start is that I think the performance probably wasn't great, but that doesn't really matter, does it, mate? When you're getting points, you need to be winning games when you're playing badly. And I think at this point, after the past 2 games that we've had, where we've only picked up a point at home against Sheffield United, and then with the loss to Manchester United, it was just important that we got this win today because as we both rightfully said in the preview, mate, this game proved to be as difficult as we thought it might.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we were kind of predicting, wasn't it? Is that Burnley clearly came to Villa Park inspired by the last couple of games, particularly, no doubt, inspired by their fellow relegation strugglers, Sheffield United, and the result that they managed to pick up at Villa Park and how close they were to leading with 3 points. And even with 10 men, Burnley played with a real kind of sense of belief. We know that they're a side that historically we've struggled against. This is only the first time we've completed a league double over Burnley since 1925, 1926. It's been that long, almost 100 years, since we've managed to win 2 games in a league season against Burnley. So a real bogey team for the Villa, and we have managed to overcome that. I think it just goes to show this game, there's an advert for just how much these sides battling the relegation kind of in that mire have come. Like we've seen in just the span of a week how 2 sides that seemingly look nailed on for relegation, maybe even just a few weeks ago, are really starting to find their feet in this league. And that's good to see, first and foremost. It's always good to see the league competitive, and you almost kind of feel for Burnley a little bit that they didn't walk out of Villa Park with a result, because they probably did enough to earn one, to be honest with you. We, as you say, we got it over the line in the end, but we had more than our fair share of chances to put this away. It just goes to show, if you rock up to any Premier League game at the moment, no matter who it's against, if you're 10, 15, 20% off the boil, you're going to struggle. And there's so much quality in this league that more often than not, if you turn up and play 80% capacity, the other team's going to play better than that, and you're going to have a hard time. And I think that's kind of what we've seen with the United game, with the Sheffield United game, and now with this one as well, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think ultimately, we're halfway through a season where we are realistically overachieving. And as you rightfully pointed out, mate, we joined top. Like, this is crazy. This is everything you could want it to be. This is a fantastic position to be in. But the way you maintain that is by getting the points done, getting them on the boards, and ultimately grinding out these games. I think even if you look at Liverpool, you look at their games against Sheffield United and Burnley, ground out 2-0 wins, and were both, again, more difficult than they probably anticipated in regards to that as well. So it's one of them where there can't really be too many complaints. I'm just happy that we've ended the year on such a positive note. And I mean, it's quite fantastic, really, just to see, we've the record we have at home, amazing. I think we've got the second most amount of wins in 2023. We've got the joint most home wins as well, I believe, which is just a crazy statistic to have as well. And it just shows how far we've come. I saw his Twitter post about it, and it only really sunk in when I read it on a screen. I thought, oh my days, like, that's remarkable. I don't think there's ever been a time in our lives, mate, where we've gone to Villa Park and won as many games. Like, it's absolutely mental, isn't it? The sort of moment that we're existing in right now. And I thought, Ollie Watkins, someone I wanted to talk about, mate, because sorry, my throat, I don't know what's going wrong with me. Ollie Watkins has been fantastic. 2023 has been the year of Ollie Watkins. I think if you had to pick 10 players who have had a good 2023, I think Ollie Watkins is comfortably, he's maybe top 5 players 2023, certainly in the Premier League, that is. And he's not scored since that Brentford game. He would have got an assist should that goal have been given against Sheffield United, but he's got 2 assists in this game today. And I'm not as worried about Ollie Watkins not scoring goals anymore, because we've gone through phases, all throughout his sort of time at Aston Villa, haven't we, mate? Where we know that he's going to potentially have a dry spell, but we know he's going to come back and score in a flurry as well. But he's still contributing to the team, and it's still meaningful contributions. And his 2 assists were fantastic today, mate, I have to say. The first one especially, that sort of curved run outside, we've not seen him do that for a while. That's something that has almost been coached out of his game, really, hasn't it? With United sort of wanting him to stay central. But I guess Bailey and Diaby, they both occupy very similar positions, sometimes to their detriment, often getting in each other's way. But Ollie had to go out wide to bring it back. Oh my God, my throat again. I need a glass of water. I don't know why I've started recording without a glass of water. He goes out wide to come back, and Leon Bailey, I mean, first of all, how many times has Leon Bailey scored this exact type of goal at the back post for Villa? Slight deflection, but they all count nevertheless. And again, he's another player. What a turnaround he's had. And, not for us to sit here and gloat, because we definitely don't know everything. But, happy to say that we backed Leon from the start. And it's just great to see him contributing as much and being as important to the team as he is right now. Like, he almost feels indispensable. Like, even in the past few weeks as well, mate, because we've sort of gone from a month ago being like, isn't Bailey the perfect bench player, to like bona fide starter now? Like, Bailey's changing games when he's starting for Aston Villa.
Yeah, well, I think that very nicely summarises exactly what's going on right now, and that kind of attacking trident of Diaby, Watkins and Bailey. So no player in Europe's top 5 leagues has provided more assists this season than Ollie Watkins, 8, which is amazing, really, when you consider it that he's also pitched in with 9 goals to go alongside that. I believe there's only 2 players that have scored 20 plus goals and provided 10 plus assists in the Premier League in 2023, and they are Ollie Watkins and Mohamed Salah. So he's in some pretty esteemed company there, but the way that they're sharing goals between them, Bailey, Diaby, Watkins, 9 goals, 7 assists, Diaby 4 goals, 4 assists, and Bailey 6 goals, 5 assists, kind of summarises that everything that Emery wants from this team, and the very fluid roles that those 3 players have, particularly Watkins and Diaby, and that it doesn't really feel that either of them occupy traditional positions on a football pitch. I mean, Watkins is kind of the identified striker there, but the role that Diaby plays particularly is very lucid. It's very hard to kind of tie down exactly, if you had to put it in black and white, what kind of position he plays. It's very difficult to do that, and the role that Diaby plays, kind of sew that attack together, is really important. And that was his first goal, Diaby. This is his first goal at Villa Park since October. We've both kind of said at points that it kind of feels that maybe he's scored more than he has, and I think that is kind of reflective of the nature of those 3 and the way that the goals are being shared across the team. And we've spoken about how Villa were always a little bit worried should Ollie Watkins pick up an injury, and it's something that we seem keen to address in the transfer window. I know that the club has spoken before about how they're not just going to go out and buy a player for buying a player's sake. They'll wait for the right deal. Even if we're desperate for a player in a position, we're not going to overspend. We're not going to be caught getting into ridiculous bidding wars or anything like that. And so we know that we're in the market for a striker, but we're always worried that, if Watkins did get injured, it would derail our season. But when you start to look at how Leon is contributing, how Musa is contributing, how Douglas Luiz is contributing, we know that McGinn is scoring at a better rate this season than he has almost in any other season since he arrived at Villa, certainly in the Premier League. Kind of eases those concerns. And, every once in a blue moon, you're going to get a game like Burnley away where Matty Cash provides 2. Villa are certainly scoring goals, and we're scoring a lot of goals from a lot of different positions, and that is a hallmark of a team that competes at this side of the table. What is slightly concerning is that we're having to score 3 goals to get a win at home against Burnley because we're conceding 2 at the other end. And Villa were really, really solid just a few games ago, but it seems that I don't know whether it's tied to Powell coming out of the team. It feels a little bit loose about that.
Emi Martinez, we should probably speak about him because I don't think he had a brilliant game, really. I think he's caught in no man's land for the equaliser, the first equaliser that is, right after the kickoff basically as well, which is just so frustrating to finally get the ball in the back of the net and then allow Burnley to equalise in the way they did. Ball at the back stick, Dara O'Shea heads it back across goal, and it's a fantastic finish on the Burnley forward as well. It actually annoyed me that they ran to the opposite corner to celebrate because the away end was that way, and he went that way. I'm thinking, what are you doing? Like, you just equalised at Villa Park. Go and celebrate with your fans. And we gave them that belief that in that moment, like, Burnley didn't really do a lot up until that point, and the goal gave them the belief that they could go and get a couple more. Obviously, they only got 1 more, thankfully, but could have been a couple more on another day. The second goal is incredibly frustrating as well. I do worry. There were some comments about the high line on the last podcast about, we're 2-0 up, why we're still playing a high line. Let's fill the box, let's do this, let's do that. And whilst to a certain degree, I agree, there could have been better in-game management in that game. I feel like we know by now, Unai Emery isn't compromising his sort of method of play, his principles of play. There's so many times I've come on this podcast and ranted to you, mate, and said, look, we need to play, we need to do that 6 at the back thing that we've done a few times, like away from home, but we just don't seem to do that anymore. There is this belief in not only Unai Emery, but in the players, in how we play. So unfortunately, that's not going to change. But you do kind of see with that second Burnley goal, these guys are almost expecting every single time a ball goes over the top for there to be an offside flag. And they were really relying on that because Moreno was nowhere near catching Taylor. Diego, tried to recover, didn't get there. Emi Martinez just seems to leave half the fucking goal open for him to get beaten at his near post, which is incredibly frustrating. Am I reaching there, mate, with the sort of offside thing? What do you think? Because that's just it's, we have the most offsides in all of Europe's top 5 leagues. We caught the teams offside the most out of any team in Europe's top 5 divisions, right? We're probably near the hundreds now. I don't have the numbers to hand, but it was about 85 a couple of weeks ago. Are we too reliant on that? Because as well, you have to play to the whistle, right? And it's to the detriment of sometimes, because obviously Luca Dean gets injured in the last game for doing that. There's a few instances in this game where we sort of had to play to the whistle. They obviously had the ball in the back of the net in the first half, didn't they, mate? Or was it the second half? No, it was the first half, where sort of Taylor got the beating of Longley again. But, from where I was sat, at least, I could quite clearly see he was offside. Are we relying too much on that? And it's at least for Emi as well, as a goalkeeper, even if somebody is running offside and you just sort of stand there and sort of make a half-arsed effort to save or do whatever, and they score and it is still flagged offside, that's still incredibly embarrassing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to save that even if he's offside.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. It's high risk, high reward strategy, isn't it? Playing a high line. And look, you only have to look at where we are in the league table to show that it's working. I think, in terms of Unai, that like deviating from his favourite style, I mean, the numbers and they're all to say that we shouldn't. We, as you say, if you look at, to speak to those numbers which you brought up a second ago, we've won more home games and more home points in the Premier League in 2023 than any other side. By and large, we've had a pretty good defence at the heart of that. And so, but we know that it's going to catch us out at points. There will come points where, as you say, the defence stop, a lot of communication, you do have games like this where all it takes is a particularly savvy opposition and they will get around it. But the Premier League is notoriously slow to pick up on tactical quirks. And, this is something that you and I have spoken about a lot with newly promoted teams. If you can offer something different, you have a much better chance of survival, because teams do take a while to pick up on different nuances between teams. It's actually really interesting considering that, the managerial nuance and all of the time that is spent studying tape and different tactics and the way that teams set up nowadays, that teams do continue to fall short of our offside trap. And look, long may it continue. I mean, on today alone, I think we caught Burnley offside 6 times. We have an average of just over 5 offsides a game, which, as you say, is by far and away the highest in Europe's top 5 leagues. We are incredibly good at this, it should be said. But yeah, it's an interesting one, that it does mean that we rely on Emi Martinez a lot. I wanted to shout him out a couple of games ago, really, because ever since there was a mistake at Forest away, he's been pretty excellent.
Yeah,
faultless, really. And this is the kind of first time that I can even remember him making a small mistake. And yeah, he'll definitely feel he should have done better, obviously, because we got the win. It will go down, and as just with a footnote, really, in terms of when we look back at this game. But yeah, it does put a lot of pressure on him, and he enjoys that, and he's very good at that. He's very good at coming off his line. We saw that with the way that the United game, how he came off his line to tackle Rashford when he was running. He enjoyed that responsibility, but he is under a bit more pressure than most of the other goalkeepers in this league, because his box is, so much bigger than 18 yards, kind of, so to speak. The area that he has to manage is the best part of the entire half, really, when Villa run the ball. And so you are going to kind of get these situations where he's caught out of position, because the territory which is his to manage and his to clear up in is so much bigger.
Yeah, you're right. And there was an interview he did, I think it was with The Zone before the game, where he was saying that he's been telling Unai he needs to sort of work on his sprinting, because he's never sprinted this much in his life. And I don't disagree, I mean, please do that. But, he had quite a few sort of rushes out of goal where he sort of managed to win the ball again in this game as well. So, it's something that, whilst he will probably say, I did say in that interview, it's not something he'd really done before his time at Villa. It's certainly something that he sort of excels in, that role of a sweeper keeper. More often than not, he is, excellent. But thankfully, I don't think there's probably a single person in the stadium that was more relieved that Douglas Luiz put away that penalty than Emi Martinez. He was sort of sat on the railings of the Holte end, just sort of waiting and watching, and when it went in, he sort of celebrated with the fans, which was a nice moment. But you could certainly tell that he was very serious. And after he conceded the second goal as well, he couldn't even turn around and sort of look at the Holte end, because he knew the sort of mistake he'd made. So I'm sure we won't see that kind of thing in his game for a very long time, at least. And Douglas Luiz, man, penalty taker. I think he was on Twitch the other day, and somebody asked him if he was ever going to let Watkins have a penalty again, and he was like, "Yeah, why not?" Clearly not yet. Clearly not yet. But I mean, it could have done with the Watkins goal for FPL, but I'll take the 2 assists. But Douglas Luiz, man, I mean, from where I was sat, I couldn't tell when it hit the crossbar that it actually crossed the line. It was only when it sort of ricocheted off it for the second time, I was sort of convinced that it had actually crossed. But it's, we're still scoring goals late on in games, mate. We're showing plenty of character to sort of get points on the boards. This is the second time in as many games now where we've left it late to secure points, not necessarily wins, but points. And I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in the Ramsey household right now, mate, because obviously Aaron Ramsey gives away the penalty in what is probably a very soft manner. And then he seems to sort of butt heads with Jacob, and Jacob does the big brother thing of giving him a shove, takes the yellow card. Aaron Ramsey, just got to say thank you for the penalty, mate. Clearly still has the club at heart, and it's a shame he didn't get a load of minutes. Obviously came off the bench recently, coming back from an injury himself, but he got a great reception in Villa Park, and I'm sure it's a very special moment for the Ramsey family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting penalty decision, isn't it? I don't personally think it's a penalty. I think John Duran does. He was very good, John Duran, when he came on. Actually, I thought he really does a good job of kind of putting himself about, and it's just an interesting situation with Duran. Not to kind of got off on a tangent, where it kind of feels like we're back where we were 6 months ago,
right?
Where he's kind of getting 10, 15-minute cameos off the bench that impress, and we're kind of back to that place where it's like, yeah, well, if he can calm down a bit and start being a bit more measured and adding goals to his game, and you kind of forget that he has kind of already started to do that, and then obviously had that big time where, you know, he was out of the first team for, you know, led to believe injury or whatever. But, you know, we indulged a couple of conspiracy theories here on the Villa podcast, as we love to do. And so, you know, he wins the penalty, and it's a bit soft, but, you know, it's one of those where we come out on the right side of the margins again, and look, you know, Dougie, he definitely doesn't mean that, and it's closer than we'd have liked, but it gets the job done, and it gets us over the line, and it kind of brings me full circle back to my original point, mate, in that we did more than enough to win this game. You shouldn't have had to rely on a penalty right almost in the 90th minute to get this over the line. You know, 19 shots, 7 on target, 66% of the ball, made more than 200 passes that Burnley did at a much higher passing accuracy. By and large, we were the far better side in this game, and there was a flurry of chances in the second half where we should have had this game dead and buried. I think, you know, we shouldn't have had to be relying on that Duran kind of making the most of that in that slight touch on the sole of his foot from Aaron Ramsey, and then Luiz managing to get one over the line from the penalty spot. We should have had it sorted out much, much earlier than that. And so it's hard to be. I don't want to be too critical. I'm wary that I kind of soured it, but yeah, this is the thing in that, you know, we know we've got a very reliable from the penalty spot and everything like that. But yes, it is. You know, when you look at, that's the big differentiator now. When you look at the league table, when you look at the sides around us, Liverpool can see it's 16, Arsenal 18, Spurs 11. You know that. Sorry, Spurs Spurs on 28. Sorry, so yeah, no, maybe that Spurs are a better example in that there are some sides closer to it. But yeah, if you look at 16 goals that Liverpool have conceded, Man City on 21, Arsenal on 18. We're the highest out of the top 4 on 27. And look, we've got a defence that is more at how much it's in terms of resources that we leak more goals than those guys. But just something to watch. Because, you know, it's a simple game. If you score more goals than the opposition, then you're going to win games. And we can do that by keeping things tight at the end, which did a really good job of. Hopefully, outcomes, I mean, it will help smooth those things out. Yeah. It's an interesting kind of decision, and I felt a little bit finally, but yeah, I'm never glad. Always glad to get 3 points.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. But yeah, obviously we've got the Premier League winter break coming up soon. 2 more games before that, FA Cup and Everton away, which may actually be easier than it probably was a couple of games ago. Everton off on the back of 2 big losses on the bounce. However, you know, these guys have certainly earned their rest. I think that is for sure. And Dan and I will be about, hopefully, in abundance because, you know, it's January, it's transfer rumour mill season. I think we're coming into our 7th year of this YouTube channel and podcasting, mate. So before we go, I think it's only fair that we just give a massive shout out to the audience, you guys listening, watching at home. You know, the podcast again has gone from strength to strength this year. And it's been turbulent as ever, but we wouldn't have it any other way. And hopefully, mate, 2024 is the year of the Villa filler.
That's good. Yeah, no, absolutely, mate. Second that. Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. I'm really looking forward to the transfer windows as well, because, you know, should we end up in the Champions League or something like that, it could all get very interesting indeed.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, guys, if you enjoyed this podcast, let us know. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't already. And if you're on Apple and Spotify, leave a review, download, follow, share with your friends. It all helps out more than you guys could imagine. So, yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and up the Villa.